B Block Podcast in here, and I'm not running from the smoke. Not running from the smoke. Brandon Scott in the building. And look, the Rockets kind of got your boy looking a little silly. I've been out here throwing on the cape, riding for the hometown team, talking about how the Golden State Warriors look like food based off of the way that they ended the season and how I wasn't worried about the Rockets going up against the Warriors. And lo and behold, there were some things to absolutely worry about, but y'all don't worry. I brought a guest in to talk about what's happening. My guy, Big Sarge. Before we get into all of the happenings at Toyota Center, man, I got to do a quick wellness check on my guy, Big Sarge, man. Look, it's a busy time. It's been a while since, I know for you, been a while since you've done like NBA playoffs and draft at the same time, like those things collide. Now, we've done double and triple duty before. That's not new, but This is a little bit different type of energy. Quick wellness check before we get into the nitty gritty of everything, Big Sarge, man. Thank you for being here, first of all, and how you living?
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me. It's always good to be on the block, on the B block. And hey, I mean, what else would an old man say? I'm sleepy. I need a nap. Like I'm at that age now, B, where I need naps. So I'm doing pretty good, and I can't complain. It's a busy time. I mean, it's a great time for the city of Houston, but I'm doing good, man.
Man, look, it's so funny that you would mention a nap because I have not brought this. I guess this is the first time I'm even speaking since the game. Because I haven't been on the air or anything like that since the game up until now, you and I recording. Man, I will not lie to you, bro. I took a nap ahead of this game. Yeah. Now, it wasn't necessarily in preparation for the game. I was a little bit tired anyway, had a long weekend. So I just kind of took a nap anyway. But I cannot tell you what that did for me, for my energy level, being at the game. I wasn't sluggish. I was ready to go. You know, I was in playoff mode, playoff ready, if you will. And it helped me, man. I was up. It was a late night, you know, cutting audio for the station, handling some of the digital work for the radio station and all of that, man. But I was ready, and the nap was necessary, man. Look, I don't think there's no shame in that. If the nap is what gears you up, or if the nap helps you get through the grind of it all, I think it's well worth it, man.
Oh, B, I took a nap, and our guy Cody Davis, who covers the Detroit Pistons, is actually in New York right now. The Pistons are taking on the New York Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, and he texted me yesterday. He texted me on Sunday. He texted me on Sunday, and that was after I had took like a 2.5 hour nap. And I said, the thing that is making me feel so weird, B, is I took a 2.5 hour nap. I woke up and it's still 4 hours left till the game starts. And he was just cracking up. I was like, why do these games have to start so late? And so, yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. Come Wednesday's game, I'm gonna take during the day. I'm going to take another nap because I'm going to need it. I didn't leave the arena. I didn't leave Toyota Center till 2:10 a.m. So yeah, I need those. I told you I'm at an age where I need naps, and I appreciate a good nap. Oh my goodness, it's amazing.
Yep. Once all of the post game stuff was over with, I took the work home. But Sarge, I did not lay my head down till 4:10 a.m. 4:10 a.m. Now the only reason why I did that was because the kids didn't have school, and I knew I didn't have to be up as early as I normally would. So I kind of cheated a little bit. But 4:10 a.m. and it was all because of the nap. Wouldn't have been possible. And I feel fine. I'm probably a little tired. I feel all right. You know, got up, handled business. So, you know, it's good. And side note, man, since you did mention our guy, friend of the show, friend of ours, and Big Sarge, by the way, did not properly introduce you. Big Sarge of Big Sarge Media, Black-owned business. Want to shout that out. And also of Locked On Texans. But, of course, Cody was your, let's see how we do this. Cody was your predecessor at Locked On Texans, but also just our boy, you know, formerly of Texans Wire, Rockets Wire. Am I getting that right? Everything he did
did Sports Illustrated, he did Sports Map, and then he did Sports Map first, and then he did Sports Illustrated, and then he moved his way on up to where he is now, Detroit News.
Yeah. So I want to shout out Cody real quick though, because as much as I love the fact that Houston is in this position and the Rockets are in this position, Cody Davis was here for all of that too, right? Yes. He was stuck in the mud like all the rest of us for them hard times, and then he goes out to Detroit, which was more about, like, that's not about what the Pistons necessarily got going on as much as it is about a career opportunity for him. And of course, we're all happy and excited for him, pursuing his dreams and all of that. But it was like, man, dark days over there, bro. Dark days over there.
Wait, B, hold on.
And then look how it worked out. I'm saying, look how it worked out, man. Like he gets over there and they get their mojo changed real quick. Cade Cunningham is healthy all of a sudden. He got a relevant basketball team covering playoff basketball out there at Madison Square Garden doing his thing. I'm sure riding up a storm. My boy. Shout out to Cody Davis.
Yeah, because I was going to say I don't feel sorry for the just to be politically correct on here, for that vertically challenging man. I don't feel bad for him.
Why you do him like that though? Why you do him like that, man?
Cody is like my little brother for real. I mean, I talk to Cody every day, at least 2-3 times a day, and it's crazy because people be thinking, "Hey, man, I bet y'all just be talking about sports." Man, Cody. I just found out from Cody not too long ago that the DeBarge family was just as crazy as I don't want to say crazy, but they were really weird, and I had no clue about all that. He's like, they did a three-part episode of Unsung. And so, yeah, man, me and Cody be talking about everything, but I'm like, Cody experienced the 3 years of bad football here in Houston. He's experienced the 3 years of bad basketball, moved to Detroit. He helped cover the Detroit Lions, who were amazing this past season. And now he's covering the Detroit Pistons, who are in the first round, who made that turnaround when they got JB Bickerstaff. Shout out to Cade Cunningham. When Cody was here in Houston, I got a chance. He introduced me to Cade Cunningham, by far one of the best guys I've ever met in my entire life. But what else would I think? He's from Texas, you know, he's from Dallas. So, you know, we talked about Big X the Plug a lot, and, you know, just had some fun.
Yeah, man, definitely doing their thing out there in Detroit. Shout out to Cody Davis, man, for sure. Like you said, was in the mud of it for football and basketball. Gotta love the opportunity and the work that they're getting out there, man. You got on them for being vertically challenged, man. Come on now, gonna do my boy like that. But I don't feel bad for him being out there in that cold though. I know it's probably not as cold right now. I don't feel as bad or as good, I should say, it's good for him being out there in that cold, because that's one thing that I imagine that my boy is for sure missing. But look, man, let's get right into this thing, man, because I had a lot of bravado on the Rockets' behalf. I had our guy Chancellor Johnson on here last week talking about the game, looking ahead, and I remember mentioning to him that going into the play-in, I thought that the Warriors and the Grizzlies, no matter which team came out of that play-in game, I thought both of them looked like food when it came to the Rockets, based off of the way that they had ended the season, based off of the way that they had been playing, based off of the way that the Rockets played against the Warriors in their most recent outing. And we understand what the history is against the Rockets, not just kind of going back to the Harden era, but even the more recent history hasn't necessarily been great. But then when I watched them in that play-in game against Memphis, started to kind of change my tune a little bit, but still had my chest out like, man, let's go, man. Rockets still got the physical matchup advantage, I should say. And this is not the old days. This is the new days, and I think that the Rockets got it.
Yeah.
But man, I'm sitting up there on press row yesterday or on Sunday night watching this game, and I felt a lot differently watching the things that the Rockets don't do well and the things that the Warriors got going for themselves, and they are a direct contrast of each other, man. And so I got to kick this thing off by asking you, do you feel like, based off of the way that the Rockets lost that game, that it's panic time for the Rockets just one game into this series?
Well, wait, hold on, B, because wait, you talking to Brian right now. Give me a second.
All right. All right, Brian.
You on Sarge.
All right,
All
yeah,
right.
let's see if we can get Big Sarge in here.
No, B, it's not time to panic. And the reason why I say it's not time to panic is because, honestly, did you think that the Houston Rockets was going to sweep the Golden State Warriors?
No, not at all. I didn't think that they were going to sweep, but I did think that when they played, I did think that if they held the Golden State Warriors to 95 points, that perhaps they could score 96. I did think that.
Well, I put it like this, B. You're talking about a team that on Sunday night, I didn't even realize this, but they mentioned Steph Curry has played 156 playoff games. 156 playoff games. You know what? That's 155 more than Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Reed Shepard, Cam Whitmore. And so I expected them to come in, and no matter how many times we talked about the youth and inexperience not playing a part, for the most part, it's just basketball. But it's a different type of animal to say it and then to be on the court and have to deal with it. On Monday, during this press conference, CJ Stroud mentioned how much the watching the Rockets last night reminded him of playing in his first playoff game against the Cleveland Browns. And so I know that they were not going to come in, and even with their initial run that they started off with, and we seen an amazing dunk by Alperen Şengün on Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler said after the game that it's a game of runs. They make their runs, we make our run, and it's just all about who makes the best run. But a lot of that has to do with nerves as well. And so when you're going up against a team who has a championship pedigree, that has Steph Curry, that has Draymond Green, that has Kevon Looney, and they added Jimmy Butler, like those guys don't get rattled and get frazzled by anything compared to what we've seen with the Houston Rockets. So I don't think that it's time to panic. The one thing that I really liked watching the Houston Rockets on Sunday night was they got down by 25 points and then got it back to within 4. And so if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, this series, of course, I feel like it's going to go 6, maybe 7. But if it's going to, if the Rockets lose with Steph Curry keep making those ridiculous shots that we've seen him make throughout his career, but he has to, if it's going to take those, then the Rockets deserve to lose. But if you can get Curry to miss like maybe 1 or 2 of those and keep the momentum going, maybe hit some free throws, get some of your key players actually scoring some buckets, it'll be different, B.
So let me lay out the arguments for and against panic, okay? Because I came up with both sides of this. I want to see what you think about this.
Okay.
The argument for panic is this: the Rockets guarded about as well as they could expect to, but they still really didn't have much of an answer for Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler, okay? And of course, on the other side of that, they are prone to these kind of offensive lulls. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to shoot as poorly as they did. I mean, that backcourt, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, that backcourt shot about as bad as you could ever expect them to shoot, even on their own, among their own standards, right? But that is, as much as the defensive performance that we credit them for is real and a part of their DNA, so is this thing about their offense, man. Like, they are prone to that. So to me, you got those things I mentioned, that kind of these contrasting strength and weakness. And then I would say too, one team looked like it was the more experienced and more poised team, to kind of the points that you're making right now. One team looked like the more experienced and the more poised team out there. I think even Alperen Şengün, after the game, we were sitting right there, mentioned being nervous, and he didn't look as nervous because he performed pretty well, but kind of overall, they looked nervous. They looked a little frazzled. The game plan that the Warriors have for them defensively, they didn't really seem to have much of an answer for, on top of the fact that they didn't have an answer for Curry or Butler. And I don't think that the Rockets, I put it this way, I'm not sure if the Rockets can just make up for that experience in one series the way that they would need to. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the argument against panic is that it's only one game. And like you said, it's not like they were going to sweep the Warriors. So it's only one game. And the playoffs, we know this, the playoffs are about making adjustments. It is a chess match. Coaching is a big part of the playoffs, even if you kind of write it off in the regular season, which I don't think you should. But it's definitely a huge factor in game-to-game adjustments and how games look different in the playoffs just within one series. And so perhaps there's an adjustment to be made where Houston can get better quality shots.
Yeah.
They missed a lot of wide open shots, right? So surely you can expect them to shoot it better than that. Yeah. The free throw line, that was an issue, right? I think they went something like 11 or 20 from the free throw line. That could easily be corrected, and it's probably more of an anomaly, even though they're not a good free throw shooting team. Yeah. I think this is the big argument against panic, though, and this is one I'm still leaning on in the Rockets' behalf. Is still, to me, and it looked this way to me even Sunday night as Steph Curry is out there shooting crazy shots and Jimmy Butler's doing Jimmy Butler things. It is still, Sarge, a physical mismatch in the Rockets' favor. Yeah. Still a physical matchup in the Rockets' favor. And if they can figure out a way for the brain to match the physical capability, I think there's a lot more to uncover with the team. So I think the argument against are obvious. Like the shooting is something that they are prone to do, so that can come up again to bite them in the tail. But also, they have the talent, they have the physical mismatch, and I think they've got the opportunity here to make the adjustment to what they saw in game one.
And I feel like what they're going to have to do is, so this is, for me, this is where the game changed on Sunday night. When Şengün picked up his second foul and had to sit on the bench, the offense all of a sudden just stalled. Like the offense just went dead. And they scored 13 points in the second quarter. And you're not going to win any NBA game by scoring 13 points in a quarter. Like there's no, you can't even beat the worst of the worst team in the league. You can't even beat the San Antonio Spurs. And I know that the Spurs fans going to be mad at me, but even with Wemby on the court, I still feel they're the worst team in the league. But that's another story for another time. Anyway, you can't beat a team, and you can't beat a Warriors team by scoring only 13 points in the quarter. Now, the way that Alperen gets caught up, the way Şengün gets caught up sometimes in the switches, he's prone to get the type of fouls that he picked up. But if you can keep him out of foul trouble, they can still, keep the momentum that they had built a little bit against the Golden State Warriors. Excuse me. But when you had to take him out, now you have this lull, and now you have this scoring drought that they went through. And like I said, that 13 points, you're saying to yourself, okay, come on now, you've got to be better than this. And what the Golden State Warriors did, they took advantage of that. They said, okay, so without Şengün in the game, y'all are really not getting any offense from anywhere else. So now we can do what we want to do. I think that the reason to panic, I will say that a reason to panic is this. The Rockets have played the Warriors 4 games at home this season, including the game on Sunday night in the playoffs. Jalen Green is averaging 8.75 points per game. He's shooting 24% from the field and 17% from three-point range. That isn't indicative of so much how Jalen Green plays. That goes back to the coaching staff, because if you see that this is the way that Steve Kerr and his coaching staff have devised this defensive scheme and this defensive plan to stop Jalen Green, then you're going to have to counter that. You've seen these games. You're going to have to counter that. You know what they want to do. And so sometimes when you have the double big, and I'm not a NBA coach. I've never been an NBA coach. I just play one on a podcast, right? So if you're going to throw those double bigs in there, then maybe run Jalen off of double screens to get him on a different defender. You can't just run one screen pick and roll. Hey, come up, bring Şengün on one screen. Bring Adams on one screen. Let Şengün come up the other one. And on that second one, you do the pick and roll. I also feel like on Sunday night, B, they stayed too long with that double big lineup. Yes, it got them offensive rebounds. They ended the game with 22 offensive rebounds, so it got them rebounds, but it didn't equate to the points that they needed. And so you got to start, this playoff series is going to be about a game of adjustments. And I'm curious to see what the adjustments in game 2 from the Houston Rockets standpoint is going to be.
Man, the Jalen Green thing is really, from a Rocket standpoint, Sarge, is the lead story. And it's not to pile on, but it's to point out how different of a team this is when he is right versus when he is not, and I think it's just a vast difference. Like, it's one thing to know that you can rely on Alperen Şengün for the most part to be what he was on Sunday night. But the ebb and flow of whether Jalen Green is star level Jalen Green or just kind of another guy that's out there, that is really the difference between here and there for this team. And I don't feel like that can be overlooked. And then specifically against the Warriors, like you said, the averages are what they are. The numbers are what they are. You can go look them up. They're not good. I think it speaks to really both. I know you put it on the coaching staff, Sarge, but I got to put it on both of not figuring out how to, like, we straight up asked him last night, right? Or on Sunday night, asked Jalen, hey, man, what about the way that they're defending you? What do you need to adjust to? What do you need to do? And he talks about taking his time. Like, honestly, like to not get too nitty gritty in it, like to simplify it, there's way too much dribbling and not enough passing. Like you talked about running off of screens, like that's the type of stuff that we're talking about, where you're creating easy shots. Like, and they talked about reasons for panic. They, to their discredit, they weren't getting good shots a lot of times, or were not making the right reads and the right decisions in the half court offense. And then when they were getting good shots, when they were getting offensive rebounds that were creating better shots for them, which turned out to be kind of a strength of their offense, if you can even call it that, they were missing them. Yeah. And so it's like, what are you going to do when you miss the gotta have it's, those second chances? I mentioned the free throws earlier. Like, it is a chief and prime issue for the Rockets right now. So I want to ask you this: why do you think? And I think we're kind of answering it by mentioning this sort of ebb and flow with Green. But why do you feel like the Rockets have struggled to find an offensive identity this late in the season? It's not like they don't have the talent. We're talking about who some of these talented players are. We know Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, what Jabari Smith Jr. is capable, and we'll talk about him also in just a second. But why do you feel like this team, this deep into the season, has struggled to find an offensive identity considering the talent that's on the roster?
So I don't think that they've struggled to find an offensive identity. I think that, and I was thinking this, last night as I'm watching the game, and I've seen it. Actually, I've seen it throughout the season as I've been covering this team. But I feel like with the emergence of the Houston Rockets and them finding themselves back in that scenario, being talked about being a good team in the Western Conference, they also look at it as, and I feel like this is how the referees look at it. They're like, okay, so yeah, they're back, but they're gonna have to earn it. And on Sunday night, a lot of the shots that Jalen missed was he was going through contact. He was going through a lot of contact. He was being hit a lot. He was being fouled a lot, but they didn't give him the free throws, and he only had 2 free throws attempt on the whole night. And you're saying to yourself, but he went to the hole way more than that. He got knocked out of the air a lot. And I get it. I understand playoff basketball. Don't get me wrong. I've been watching this game for a very long time, and I understand that in the playoffs, the things intensify. And I understand that they say, hey, look, we're going to let you play through a lot. But this is the same thing that's been happening to Jalen a lot throughout the season. So I don't want to make excuses for him and say that he wasn't, it was the referee's fault. I'm not saying that, because he also just missed some shots. I think when it comes to the offensive identity for the Houston Rockets, they need someone. They need someone that can draw up an offensive play, like offensive plays. I'm not taking a shot at any of the coaches, the assistant coaches on the bench, but I don't know who is responsible for the offense. I know that they have a plethora of defensive minded coaches. I know that they have a plethora of coaches who are going to teach them the fundamentals and the way to do things. But sometimes you just need a play to be drawn up. That's why I think I said earlier, I would have loved to have seen. I said this on another podcast, but I would have loved to see a coach like Memphis's ex-coach, or Mike Malone from Denver, who was also fired. Like, those two guys are offensive minded, and you put him on. I don't know that they probably don't want to be assistants, but if they got to start over, I definitely would want to see them on that bench, because now, it was like when Mahmoud was here with the Rockets, he was able to say, okay, he's looking at the flow of the game, this, that, another. All right, I know exactly what they're doing. Let's go ahead and do this. The Rockets have struggled the entire season on half-court offense. If they getting out and running, they can beat you. If they're not running, then sometimes they struggle because they want to play 4 out, letting Şengün operate from where he's at and then kicking it out. The problem is they need strong shooters. That's why it's so important for the development of Reed Shepherd over the next couple of years. He's going to be that guy. And if they do keep Cam and don't use him in a trade, this offseason, I'm not saying Cam is getting traded. I'm not saying that. But, if they do decide to trade and Cam is in there, but if he stays, he's also going to be one of those ones. So the offensive identity that they've struggled with, and the one that they struggled with on Sunday, is what they've been struggling with the entire season, and that's getting into a good half-court rhythm.
Yeah, and let's just be straight up about it, man. If Jalen Green is playing better, not having this type of conversation about their offensive identity. If Amen Thompson plays better Sunday night, not necessarily having this conversation about their offensive identity. If Jabari Smith Jr. is more involved in the offense and takes more than 3 shots, I think it lessens the need or the likelihood that you got to have.
And that's where the mismatch is, B. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's where the mismatch is when Jabari's on the floor.
So let's skip to that then, because I was going to ask about that in a little bit. But speaking of Jabari and his involvement, where are you on that? Because there was a little bit of conversation in the post game. You were there, both of us were there, about, hey, do you think about putting him back in the starting lineup? What's the adjustment there? I don't think it's necessarily that, Sarge, necessarily putting him back in the starting lineup per se, but I do think it is a matter of whenever he's on the floor of not just having him be, and he's good at being this. I kind of want to just give him credit for this, by the way, at kind of just going with the flow of the game and not doing too much and just trying to kind of know his role and play his role. But I would like for them to intentionally maybe increase his role, at least on offense when he's out there, especially on nights when they're struggling to shoot the ball the way that they were on Sunday night. They don't have, and exactly what we're talking about right here, they don't have enough reliable knockdown shooters within their rotation. I mean, Reed Shepherd would be one, but he doesn't really crack the rotation unless there's nothing really on the line. So when there's leverage out there, the only guy, one of the few guys, I should say, that's a knockdown consistent shooter is Jabari Smith. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think that they need him to be in the starting lineup, but he absolutely needs to be more involved and more of a focal point offensively, again, especially when they're struggling to shoot the ball the way they did in game 1. Where are you on his involvement in the offense?
I feel like, and side note, before I answer that, I said this Sunday night during the game and after the game. I wish they would have played Aaron Holiday a little bit more. I mean, I wish they would have played him, not a little bit more, but played him, put him in there. And when Fred was struggling to get his shot off, put Aaron in there and to see what he's able to do, because he is a consistent shooter. Right.
Another shooter. There you go. You're right on time. Right on time with that.
And so I think that what Ime has to learn is, and this is just my opinion, what Ime has to learn is how long are you going to stick with some of these rotational lineups that you've had throughout the regular season, because when you're doing it in the regular season, there's always another game, there's always another 7-8 games where you're in a do or die situation right now, and it's 7 games, and after that 7th game, somebody's going to go home. Either the Warriors are going to go home or the Rockets are going to go home, and so you have to coach it that way, that every game has to be won. And I know that the Warriors isn't a team, like I said earlier, that you're going to sweep. And so to answer your question, I feel like that you watch the flow of the game, and if that first unit is getting it done, then you don't have to bring Jabari in. I'm not starting Jabari only because I have a mindset of, okay, so I'm going to bring Jabari off the bench. I'm bringing Jabari and Tari off the bench at the same time. They're going to replace Fred and they're going to replace Dylan. I'm moving our men to the point guard position. I'm putting Tari at the 3, and I'm letting Jabari stay at the 4. And now I'm running that, because now what I do, I get more speed on the floor. I still get a defensive presence on the floor. I'm still getting rebounding on the floor. I'm getting hustle from my man. I'm getting hustle from Tari. And so I don't bring Jabari into the starting lineup just yet, because I don't feel like I haven't seen Amen Thompson have bad back-to-back games. And if you're going to insert Jabari into the lineup, that means that Amen is coming out. And I'm not taking Amen, not at this point of the season. I'm not taking him out of the starting lineup. I'm saying, okay, so maybe I have to shorten the minutes of that first unit and start to mix and match a little bit early. Because on Sunday night, I felt like I said, they stayed with the double big lineup entirely too long. I would have loved to see him say, okay, we got to get away from this, and maybe we can get back to it in the second half. So I'm not automatically putting Jabari into the starting lineup. I'm just bringing him into the lineup a little bit earlier. What I had scheduled on the paper to put him in, I may, bump that up an additional 2 minutes. My issue be with when it comes to Jabari, I hate that they've made Jabari Robert Horry. And what I mean by making Jabari Robert Horry, when Robert Horry was with the Houston Rockets, they had no plays for him. There wasn't one play that they had for Robert Horry. Everything that Robert Horry got was Robert Horry had to go get. And Ime has said consistently this past season that, hey, we don't run plays for Dylan. We don't run plays for Jabari. They just need to be in the right places at the right time, hustling, rebounding, cutting. And I'm saying to myself, I understand what you're saying, but by the same token, you got a 6'11" guy who can shoot the 3. You got a 6'11" guy who can shoot the mid-range jumper. You got a 6'11" guy who he can take small, especially smaller players off the dribble. He's always in a consistent mismatch, and I don't understand how you don't start running some of those plays. He's also a rhythm type player, just like Jalen Green. So you get him in that rhythm, get him going early, and that's how you create your mismatch. Move the focus, make the defense move the focus to having to watch Jabari. Now you're able to do everything else you want to do on the other side. So I'm not bringing Jabari back in just yet. I'm not going to panic. Now, if this is game 4 and we're still seeing some of this, then maybe I would shake up the lineup just a little bit.
Yeah, it's just like the ISO, and like if you're going to go ISO, I feel like you need to be designing your paint touches to where the ball finds Jabari. Like if he's going to be Robert Horry, maybe make him function in maybe a Robert Horry type role, but don't treat him like Robert Horry. And it's from the standpoint of, like, Robert Horry was ahead of his time. Imagine what kind of money he would make today, or what type of player he would be today. What even how his skill set probably would have been expanded in a lot of ways. He would have just been an infinitely better player, I think, if he was born 20 or 30 years later. But aside, hell, you might be Jabari Smith. And honestly, this is not to even over, because obviously, Robert Horry got 7 rings, and
Yes.
Jabari Smith is about to play his second playoff game. But what I'm saying is, really everything you just did. 6'11", can shoot at pretty much any spot of the floor, from 3, from the elbow to mid range, like whatever you need. And I don't understand why their paint touches are not designed to find a way to get the ball to Jabari Smith Jr., especially on nights like that. You know, you look also when you're playing the Warriors, the team that's on the other side, Steph Curry ain't Steph Curry because he's some kind of ISO player. Now, he can break you down. He will do some stuff and break you down, and you'll be like, man, he'll remind you why he's special and why he is who he is. But a lot of what they've done has been by design, not just by, like, they've combined the uniqueness and the how special of a player and talent he is, and you know, Klay Thompson back when they were the Splash Brothers and all of that, but designed an offense around that, right? Where they were freeing those guys up with all of their screens. One of the big, like, you know, basketball nerd pieces of their identity is a lot of the illegal screens that they set that don't get called. People complain about all of that, but credit to them for having that and figuring out a way to maximize what they got. I don't understand how it is that the Rockets are not doing that or haven't figured out a way to tap into that a little bit better now that we are as far into the season as we are. You mentioned Aaron Holiday, and in mentioning that, you also talked about Fred VanVleet. That's something that I haven't really brought up yet, but obviously, you know, Jalen Green gets a lot of the focus, but Fred VanVleet, man, that was just, again, probably as bad of a shooting night as you could expect from him. I respect Fred and everything that he brings to the team, and I don't mean that in a patronizing way, like to say, hey, man, he, you know, rah guy or anything like that. Like, I respect what he brings on and off the floor, but I got to be honest, man, it is hard. I understand and sympathize with the fan base. It is hard watching him out there with the green light that he has, not just missing shots, but the green light. You think Fred with this green light is just something that Rockets fans are going to have to learn to live with for however long this series lasts? Because I mean, it's been this way since he got here. I figure at some point, if you're not taking him out of the game, there's a conversation of, hey, maybe we don't, you know, maybe we don't try to shoot our way into the game because we really shooting our way out of the game. I don't know what to do with that, because he is leader guy. He is well respected, and I would say well-deserved respect. But at the same time, what are we doing, man? What are we doing? How is it that you got this many shots and Jabari Smith got 3?
So I guess this is just a retro Rockets show, because I'm going to bring up another player. When you talk about Fred VanVleet, I equate it to Vernon Maxwell. You know what Rudy Tomjanovich used to tell Vernon Maxwell? When Vernon Maxwell would miss, he'd be like, hey, keep shooting. You're going to hit one, and all you need to do is see one go down. So keep shooting. I don't care if you miss them all, just keep shooting. And when you look at a player like Fred VanVleet, one of the things that he's always been throughout his career, and the Rockets knew that going in when they went out and they signed him in free agency, he has always been a high volume shooter. Dylan Brooks, high volume shooter. I think that the year prior to them getting to the Houston Rockets, they were like both of them was like right next to each other as far as the amount of shots they had taken. I'm not really worried about Fred. And the reason why I'm not worried about Fred, I don't get, you know, because for as many shots as he missed in game 1, he could hit those in game 2. We've seen nights where Fred has heated up, and then we've seen nights where Fred, you know, hasn't been as good, and that was on game 1. That's the one thing that I'm not, because I know what Fred brings, and I also feel like so a lot of people aren't looking at. I always tell people, hey, stop looking at the selfie and look at the panoramic view. I also feel like Fred was taking a bunch of those shots because who else was going to take them? Dylan was off. Jalen was off. Somebody has to take the shots. And so I had no problem. With him taking those shots, because for as many as he missed in game 1, all he needs to do is hit like half of those, in game 2, and now they're in it. And once he gets hot and once he gets heating up, and of course all the other intangibles that he brings to the floor as well. But if he starts to hit his shots and he gets hot, then now that changes the entire trajectory of the offense. And you got to look at it like this. Fred is an older player as well, but his mindset is still of when he played that championship caliber basketball when he was with the Toronto Raptors. This is just me. And I tweeted this out after the game. I was like, look, you can't win with Fred and Jalen only making 7 shots, if I'm not mistaken, something to that effect. But you can't win with them shooting that way. But when it comes back to game 2, remember I asked Fred this after the game. Hey, how do you and Jalen flush that out of your system? He said, we got another game.
Yeah, look, at this point, you're pot committed to Fred VanVleet. This is, and you don't get this far, I don't think, without either Fred or somebody of that ilk or caliber. Like I'm not saying that Fred is irreplaceable, but you needed something like that. Somebody to kind of fill that role, and he's done that. But it is, again, man, it's difficult. You mentioned Aaron Holiday. I agree with the point that you made about that. And this came up with a couple of us, I think, after the game, kind of mentioning, he might have been able to be somebody that could have given him a spark, especially on the offensive side on the offense end of the floor.
Because Fred played 40 minutes, right?
Oh yeah, at least. I just had the box score up just a minute ago. Looks like 40 minutes and 22 seconds. So yeah, I mean, he's out there for the bulk of the game. Would have liked to have seen. Here's what I would say in addition to, or other than, your Aaron Holiday point. This was the case for playing Reed Sheppard more during the year, because I don't want to pretend. I don't want to fake the funk here, man, and pretend like I just want them to throw Reed Sheppard out there in the playoff game and he ain't been playing all year. In consequential moments. Like, I don't want to be like, hey, where's Reed Sheppard? Like, those are the types of things that irrational fans will put out there, and they're just thinking with their heart. You got to throw your head in there a little bit. You can't, in good conscience, throw Reed Sheppard out there in a playoff game that you're still trying to win. But maybe you could have, if he did have a little bit more experience. Yeah. Maybe you could have built up a little bit more trust and equity with Reed Sheppard throughout the year if you had used him. Now, maybe you say, well, you're compromising that opportunity to get that number 2 seed and that record that you got. Maybe you don't win as many games if Reed Sheppard plays as many minutes. But man, you had Fred out for a nice little stretch there. He was banged up throughout the year. And we saw it was a whole phase of the season where it was like, man, what the Rockets gonna do without Fred, and what the Rockets look like without Fred. And it's a crying shame what they look like without Fred. And they figured it out, to their credit, before he got. I think by the time he got back, they were looking a lot better. But and he also, is worth noting, has not looked great since coming back. Like, he's had some moments, a couple of games here and there where he's looked pretty good, but he hasn't necessarily played great since he got back. But it would have been great for me, Sarge, if I could have seen, if they could have seen more of Reed Sheppard and built up more of a level of trust to have him out there to relieve Fred, or to simply be another option on a team that has, again, feel like a broken record here, but limited shooting options, limited shot making options.
And B, I'm gonna say it like this too. I don't know, I don't know how, when I got an idea why. I've talked to some people why, but at this point, B, like, you gotta let Cam Whitmore out of the doghouse. Like, you got Cam Whitmore is instant offense.
Come on.
No matter what no matter what you feel about him on the defensive side of the ball. Okay, look, hey, if he's not playing up to par defense, that's cool. Hey, you should have some type of help for him anyway. But the man is instant offense. Look, I was in LA when they played against the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers had their normal rotation playing against the Rockets reserves. And Cam Whitmore put 34 points up on the Lakers, and not just it was an easy 34. And so he may needs to get. I feel like he may needs to get out of his own head and say, "Look, man, I gotta unleash this young man some way, somehow." And when your offense starts to stall, with Fred VanVleet, when Jalen Green isn't having a good game, when Amen Thompson isn't having a good game, you know what you say? I got to find some way to shake this up. And if you put him in the game, now guess what you do? When they on the offensive end, when you start to run these pick and rolls, and when you start to, when they get to start switching and this, that, and other, Cam Whitmore is going to find a mismatch. And once he finds that mismatch, now he's putting so much pressure on the defender, because the defender has to say, if I jump out on him, he's going to blow by me, and he's probably going to dunk on who's ever down there. But if I sag off of him, he's going to shoot this three, and he's going to hit this three. And so I would love to see more of the Keurig. I call Cam Whitmore the Keurig because, back in the day, B, we used to have to make coffee. First of all, back in the day, my mama and my grandmama used to make coffee in a pot. You had to boil the water, put the coffee grounds in the cup, wait till the water got through boiling, pour it in there, then you make the coffee, right? And then they made the coffee pot. So now you put everything, you just put it in the grounds in there, you let it drip into the pot. Now, B, with the Keurig, all you do is you open the top, put the cup in there, put it down, press the button, instant coffee. That's exactly what Cam Whitmore is. He's a Keurig machine. He's instant offense.
Man, look, I ain't been this happy all day. You are talking to the president of the Cam Whitmore fan club. I would say infamously might be giving myself a little bit too much credit, but I did. I was the one who was advocating for the Rockets to take Cam Whitmore at 4 when they picked him in Thompson, because I liked him that much. Now, clearly, I ain't the person to listen to when it comes to draft time, because I would have got us in a whole bunch of trouble if we did that, because the man lasted all the way down to 20 and they was able to take him anyway. But imagine my surprise and imagine my feeling as he's dropping. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. I am a Cam Whitmore fan. I am a Cam Whitmore guy. And I'm somebody who understands basketball and understands all of the flaws of his game. Okay. And how having him out there at times, especially in high leverage situations when the game is on the line, how it can be problematic. But he is also, you called him a Keurig. I absolutely love the analogy. I would say, to co-sign, the dude is undeniable and unavoidable. Like he is inevitable. Like he's out there, and it's like, well, what you gonna do with that? Exactly. Like, because here he comes, sort of ramrodding his way into the lane, and then not just that, he can shoot. It's like, oh yeah, I'll give him that shot. Oh, wait a minute, he can hit that. And then before you know it, he's got 20. He's got 30.
And changes the trajectory of the entire flow of the offense just based off of that. I'm gonna tell you who he reminds me of. He reminds me of Jalen Green with a better shot at this point in his career. Jalen didn't have the shot that Cam has. Cam has a way better shot at 2 years in than Jalen did at 2 years in. But look at Jalen in year 4. So, and he didn't have Ime the first 2 years of his career. He only had him the last 2. So I understand what Ime, is trying to do over the last 2 years, having Cam Whitmore, trying to get him to that point. But like I said, at some point, you got to live and you die. Hey, look, we'll fix whatever we need to fix later on. And you don't have to have him in the crucial parts of the game. Just bring him in. Look, B, it's like making a Starbucks run in the middle of the day. Like sometimes you get to lagging a little bit. It come 1, 2 o'clock. You may lag a little bit. You may need, hey, look, I got to go get me some Starbucks, or I got to go get me a coffee, right? And so you get that coffee to get you through the end of the day. You put Cam Whitmore in there to break up some of that monotony and some of that lackadaisical offense and some of that defensive pressure especially that the Warriors try to do. Because I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I understand Draymond Green is one of the 3 finalists for Defensive Player of the Year. But if Draymond Green gets switched out on Cam Whitmore, I'm hollering, clear it out. Yeah. Move. Everybody move. Because you're not. Oh, well, okay, so it's not going to be him. So you're going to slide. There's only one player on that team that I feel that will give him a tough time defensively, and that's Gary Payton II. Other than that, there's nobody else over there that's gonna stop him. And if I'm Ime, even if it's just 7 minutes, even if it's just 7 minutes, I'm like, yo, I gotta get him in this game just to let Kerr know at any point in time I could bring him back.
Man, I did not know. I did not know that we were gonna go down a Cam Whitmore rabbit hole and have a 5 to 10 minute Cam Whitmore tangent, but I'm so glad. I'm so happy. This is why we bring you on, man. Look, you could, and it's like you knew what was in the back of my mind, but for whatever reason, I ain't had a heart to say that, but you did, and I respect it so much. Thank you for bringing that, man. Give me more Cam Whitmore, and I like your point too of not necessarily when it's crunch time or when the game is on the line, but in the second quarter.
Yes.
When you're only scoring 13 points,
yep.
You know, in the early part of the third quarter, you know, there are times in the game where it's like, okay, you're looking around, who can make a shot? Mm-hmm. Oh man, these two dudes that don't play. Well, one of them at least has played before. Reed is a rookie. Cam, I mean, ain't been in the playoffs, obviously, but he's played enough ball. Like, going out there, it's just basketball, dude. Don't get in your head. It's the playoffs and all of that. Look, and they talk about that, right? Like trying to keep these guys with a level head and keep their emotions and their mentality consistent. Well, look, it should be the same should apply to guys that got to stay ready but don't expect to play, like a Cam Whitmore. Like, hey, look, we don't really expect you to be in this rotation, but if things go left, if it goes south, we might need you to come in and provide a spark. Keep your head, and it's just basketball. Don't worry about the stage and all the rest of that.
It's always just basketball for him, bro. It's like he's one of those guys where it's like he has no fear of anybody on a basketball court. Like after the Lakers game, when I asked him about going up against LeBron and going up against Luka, he's like, that's what I like. I like that type of competition, especially from guys that's been playing this game longer than I've been born and that I've been living. And so, like, he doesn't like, and that's the mindset. Like for him, getting in the game, it ain't got nothing to do with the playoffs. It ain't got nothing to do with going against the Golden State Warriors. I'm in the game. I'm in the game for a reason. I'm going to play this game because he has, look, his emotion, his one emotion that he always displays is fearlessness. Hey, I don't fear nobody on this court. And if you put him in the game with Steven Adams, now guess what you do? Steven Adams set some of the best picks on this team. So you get the ball in Cam's hand, let him come up, let Steven Adams screen his man, and now whoever was holding Adams has to roll onto Cam, and that's an automatic mismatch. Kevon Looney can't stay in front of Cam Whitmore. Post can't stay in front of him. So I'm like, no, Moses Moody can't stay in front of him. So they got to find ways to, if the game gets going, game two gets going like game one, you got to put him in.
I'm with you. Let me switch gears real quick before we really switch gears and go over to the Texans because I want to do that. We'll take a break before we do that, but I want to end our Rockets talk with this because we got to. Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler. What do you do with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler? And do you feel like as good as this Rockets defense is, and we understand it's really, really damn good, got a lot of good athletes and a lot of good, like, skilled defensive players.
I feel
does it feel like to you that Amen Thompson defensive performance that we saw on Steph a couple of weeks ago was going to be one of them once in a lifetime type of moments? Like, I'm starting to question if, as good as this defense is, if they actually got answers for those two main guys and Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler. Look, they didn't even have their best game, but they were just clearly a cut above, man.
Yeah, and so when you look at the box score, you see that Jimmy had 25 points and then Steph had 31 points. I feel like you give Steph the 31, cut Jimmy's down to like 16, right? If you cut Jimmy's down to 16 and then say somebody else is going to have to, you're going to have to get a second option from somewhere else. And I honestly and truly believe that you won't see Amen Thompson have that type of defensive performance again that he had in game one. It wasn't up to par. He's one of the guys who takes it upon himself. It's a personal challenge to him. He's very competitive. And Matter of fact, when we was in LA after they got through practicing at UCLA, I had a chance to sit down and talk with him, and we were talking about the game in Madison Square Garden where they lost that game, and Ime called him out, and Ime called out Tari. He didn't call him out by name, but he said our so-called defensive stoppers. And after the game, both of them took accountability for not playing up to par as far as being what they want, what Ime looks for them to do as far as being defensive stoppers. And so Amin and I had an opportunity to talk about that, and I asked him, and he says, "Look, these guys are just guys." And I said, "But that game right there," he said, "Yeah, I took that game personal because I know the job that I was supposed to do." And if you look from that game, and I don't know when it was, like early January, it could have been February. You look from that game on, and the way that his mindset changed from playing and doing his job, that's what got him into the conversation of being on the first team, all defensive team, that a lot of people thinking that he's going to make. He's going to make some all defensive team. But I think that coming out of this now, he's going to take that personal as far as the defensive challenge. So the main issue and problem that I think that the Rockets had in game one, stopping Jimmy and stopping Steph, was it's just the first game. To Jimmy and Steph, that was just another game for them, game one. But for a lot of these Rockets players, like we talked about earlier, I mean, think about it, B. The introduction, that introduction video, I had never seen nothing like that before. That was amazing. The crowd was rocking. This is the first time a lot of those guys, Jalen and Alpi, were embraced, knowing that they had finally made it to a point where, one of their goals that they have set when they first got here. And so it was a lot going on in game one. I think in game two, they get back to who they are. They get back to the identity. And you've seen that when they was able to make that run and get the lead cut from 25-4. But sometimes, B, you just got to bow down to things greater than yourself. And Steph Curry hitting those shots. B, when he's hitting those shots, you're not going to stop. Like, you're not going to stop him when he's hit that one shot he hit on the sideline. And shout out to Houston Texans running back Joe Mixon, who has the video of that shot that he hit with Jalen Green in his face, and he's falling out of bounds.
Yeah,
and he still hits the shot.
Ridiculous.
Like that. You're gonna have a long night if he's hitting those type of shots. My biggest, I don't want to say concern, but what I'm going to watch for is, can an older Steph Curry keep making those shots? Or was that just, hey, this is the first game, let's see, what we can do later on?
It is a guilty pleasure of mine as a Rockets fan, who a lifelong Rockets fan, who is also a lifelong basketball fan and appreciates the game and impressive feats. It is a guilty pleasure of mine to watch him play the game.
Yeah,
because I'm like, man, I hate this team. I can't stand the Warriors, right? I understand and identify with everything that Rockets fans feel when it comes to the Warriors, but I also love this game, man.
Yeah.
And I'm watching Steph Curry do things that just don't make no damn sense, dog. It don't make no sense whatsoever what he's doing out there. I don't know what there's another shot that he makes. So you're talking about the one on Green that Mixon has the video on, but he's got another shot that he shoots from like the Toyota Center logo over a men that was also ridiculous. And we've seen him make shots like that before. We've seen him do all of this before, which is why it's wild that we're still amazed by it. But it's like, how do you do that? Like, how does anybody do this with regularity at all, much less with regularity? And a men, there's that video that's been circling around social media where he kind of just puts his hands up, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like he gonna, a man got dog in him. He got heart. So It's not like he got no quit. But it's also like, man, when you see that, even for somebody with the ability that he has, it's got to be a little bit deflating, because that does not make sense. That's not supposed to happen. Not at all. All right, so look, we got the draft coming up this week. You are the co-host of Locked On Texans. You cover the Texans, as do I. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. Got to talk to, I know you did get a chance to talk to D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr. on Monday. Let's take a break real quick, and we'll talk a little Texans. All right, Sarge. Draft is coming up on Thursday. Texans got the number 25 overall pick, at least as of the moment that we speak, right? They got to do. We know that Nick Caserio can get a little frisky around draft time, trade up, trade back. But as we sit right here and talk doing this podcast, they got the number 25 overall pick. You were at NRG Stadium on Monday, got a chance to talk with D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. Last week, got a chance to talk with Nick Caserio. I'll ask you about that in a second. But with the draft coming up here in a couple of days, what you feeling? What you thinking that they're gonna do at number 25? I know if you follow the mocks, and I know you gotta talk a lot about this on Locked On Texans, but you know the feeling is offensive line or wide receiver. They could throw a curveball out there and go defense, but a lot of folks feeling offensive line, possibly receiver. What say you, Sarge, about the Texans in this first round pick?
Well, hell, according to D'Amico and Nick, if there's a really good kicker that's available, he's the best player.
With that, I like those guys. They got to get out of here with that. Stop it, D'Amico. Stop it, Nick.
Stop the cap.
Stop the cap.
Hey,
come on, dog.
Look,
be for real.
I'm just saying, B, if there's like a really good kicker that's available at 25 and he's the best player available, I mean, hey, look.
No.
Look, D'Amico said,
I know Fairbairn had his struggles at times, man, but hell no. I'll have Dari out there before I draft a kicker in the first round.
Just tell me what D'Amico said, man. D'Amico said that they can always add to position groups. They don't have to draft for need. They're going for best player available. And I'm going to be honest.
I respect it, but we ain't talking about no kicker though. They know better than that.
For sure. I was, being funny, but as I be serious, as I get serious. If the Houston Texans draft a defensive player at number 25, they've already lost the draft. There's no possible way that if you're going to stay at number 25, knowing that the offensive deficiencies that you have to draft either a wide receiver or offensive lineman. And with this draft being so top heavy as far as talent is concerned, because the Houston Texans shouldn't go into the draft with the mindset of let's find a player that we can draft. Let's find a player that we can draft and develop. No, you need a day one starter. And if that day one starter happens to be, higher up, if that day one starter is Matthew Golden, then you find a way to go get Matthew Golden. If that day one starter is Kelvin Banks, then you find a way to go and get Kelvin Banks. Because if you stay at number 25, I don't know if the talent, and there will be some talent still available that you may be able to make into a day one starter. But this draft right here is only good to me if you need a running back. If you don't need a running back, then you're going to be struggling to trying to find, to find some of the best available talent. And with the Houston Texans, their draft board is so small. Well, they only have 7 picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, maybe 9, somewhere around there though. It might be 7. I have to double
because
check.
I know they don't have a 4th round pick and they don't have a 6th round pick.
Right.
And so, their draft board is very small. So
you're right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm them, if I'm Nick Caserio and if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm saying, okay, so what is it going to take? And if I got to give up some of my back end draft picks or one of my future draft picks in order to jump up to get a day one starter. And like I said, so I'm going to go, I've been on record and I'm going to say this right here on the B Block podcast. I want the Houston Texans to go and get a receiver. And the reason why I say get a receiver is because for the last 2 seasons, we've watched Nico Collins have to go in and be the man in these divisional round playoffs because there's nobody on the opposite side to take some of that pressure off of him. So you know that you're still a year away from getting Tank Dell back. You got Christian Kirk, cool, but you also need another wide receiver over there to me that's going to help CJ Stroud. And so I understand everybody's like, get the line and protect him, B, and maybe this is just me and my mad mindset. Hey, look, if I can get the ball out of my hands quick enough, if I can get the ball out of my hands, if I can get the ball to playmakers, I don't need all that time to to be able to stand upright. If they can run quicker routes this season compared to what they've run the last 2 seasons, and if you're letting CJ Stroud call his own shots and let him do the things that he was drafted to do, and you maybe just had to wait for him to develop just a little bit more to the NFL game. But I mean, he said on Monday, "Hey, look, I get to put my own spin on this thing. This is mine. I got, in so many words, he's like, Nick Caley is going to give me the keys to the car." And so I just say that if you're not going to get a day one starter, and I don't know if a day one starter will be there at 25, and you're not going to draft, then trade back and just start stockpiling players that Frank Ross can use on special teams.
Yeah, and just for the record, to clean it up, it is 7 picks. They got the first rounder, they got the second rounder, they got the 2 third rounders, no 4th round pick as you mentioned, 1 5th round, 2 7th rounders. So 7 picks as of right now, as we sit right here. Since you mentioned it, and you're on the record right here on the B Block Podcast, and again, appreciate you for being here. You want them to go receiver. Is there a receiver on the wish list at the top of the list? Is it Matthew Golden? Is it the guy out of Ohio State? Do you have somebody in particular that you got an eye on that you think might be available for him at 25?
Yes, at 25. I don't have. At 25, I think
unless you think they're trading up, but I'm asking somebody that you think they might actually get or could get.
So if they stay at 25. Then I feel like if they stay at 25, they're not going to draft a wide receiver. They're going to draft the offensive lineman if they stay at 25. They're not going to, but if they do, they're probably looking at one of those wide receivers out of Iowa State. They have some really, their names slip my mind right now, but those wide receivers out of Iowa State, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, somebody that CJ has some familiarity with, someone that CJ knows, someone that maybe CJ, immediately get on the same page with. One player that I really like is Jalen Royals out of Utah State, and I know that he's going to be further back. But I mean, if you're not going to jump up to get a day one starter, then you might as well take someone like him and let him develop into what you want him to be. But B, I'm going to ask you a question, right? Because we talked about this. This is a subject that I brought up. This was a subject and a question that I had that I brought up on the Locked On Texans podcast that I want to ask you, and it still revolves around the Houston Texans and their draft picks. It still revolves around the Houston Texans and taking a wide receiver. B, if they take a wide receiver, what does that say for the future of Tank Dell?
Well, I think that whether they take a wide receiver, because look, taking a wide receiver or not could come down to circumstance, right? Like I don't think anybody wants them to force or is trying to force a wide receiver on them or think that they got to just take one for the sake of taking one. Maybe the ones they like are not where they're picking at, or maybe they don't feel comfortable enough trading back or up or back to get said receivers, right? But I think that just the injury alone, and we can talk about this, man. I think the injury alone is heartbreaking in a lot of ways because I don't feel like, let's just say, and you probably would have better insight on this than I would, but so you check me if you think I'm wrong on this, but I don't feel like he's playing this year. Okay, I don't think he's gonna play this year. It feels like the trauma and the surgeries and all of that is just too much to recover from to expect him to be available to play at any point in 2025. So I'm writing that off.
Exactly.
I'm writing his third season off. Unfortunately, I hate it for him, but I'm writing it off. So that means he's coming back in year 4. For him, would be his 4th season in the NFL in a contract year, coming off of these injuries, coming off the rehab from these injuries. And we've seen what it looks like when a player is coming off a traumatic injury, much less a number of traumatic injuries kind of in sequence, the way that Tank is dealt with. And I got serious questions of what that's going to look like. Like, not that I'm counting him out in terms of ever looking like himself again. Because I mean, who am I to say what somebody is capable of and what his limitations can be? But I got a hard time seeing it in year 4, the year coming off the injury. So at what point, and that's the contract year. And so at what point, like, what does his future exactly look like and where? I don't have a great sense for. And I honestly don't feel, I'm praying for the kid, honestly, because I mean, we like him. Really good dude and an exceptional football player, honestly. But man, I don't know what the path looks like for him getting back to what it looked like he could be after that rookie year. Like, I don't know if that promise is there. Like, I'm not saying his career's over with, but I don't know if that promise is still there given what's happened to him.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Tank Dell fan. Everybody knows that I always root for Tank Dell, and I hate the way that his last 2 seasons have ended as far as injury is concerned. And his rookie season, he had the injury, and then his sophomore season, he had a more gruesome injury that's going to probably keep him out for the entire year. And so, one of the things that I say is this: is that if the Texans go out and they get a wide receiver 2 for this point, right? Then you have to ask yourself, how much do they think that Christian Kirk has left? Because I think that that's going to be one of the big indicators on what they do as far as wide receiver is concerned. Like, how much meat on the bone do you think that Christian Kirk still has? And so, even if they go out and they get, and like I said, I'm very high on Matthew Golden. But even if they go out and get a Matthew Golden to play the number 2, how much does Christian Kirk have left? And then you still got to, once Tank comes back, you're going to look at how is he going to fit? Because I don't know. I mean, I can see Christian Kirk on this team for another 2 years. And then at that 3rd year, I don't know if he's still going to be the Christian Kirk that ever. But then again, look, I've watched Christian Kirk play, but I haven't watched him as closely as to give a full assessment on what I feel like his future is going to be like. But that's just the one thing that has always been in the back of my mind when it comes to this draft is if they don't go up and they don't get a wide receiver 2, a day 1 starter, and then they get somebody that's later on in the draft, I feel like that sends a message to Tank that, hey, we're still going to hold this position down for you. We don't want you to lose this position because of injury, and we're going to give you an opportunity to come back and fight for this position. The problem is, he hasn't been able to put on his NFL weight yet because he's always having to rehab from an injury. So you still got to wait for him to put that weight on, and then mentally, because he's overcome a lot throughout his career, but mentally, how does he get back knowing that his season has ended due to 2 lower body injuries?
Yeah, real tough, man. Hoping the best for Tank Dell. Best for Tank Dell. Like I said, man, rooting for him.
I was just thinking about that because of the draft. Like I said, because of the draft, because they do have a wide receiver need.
It's a relevant question. Like, look, I don't think we can talk about enough how different you feel about that position group from the way you did a year ago. Yeah. Like, and the Stephon Diggs will forever be controversial, and maybe even not controversial because some people just flat out don't like it and don't think it was a good deal. And I understand that. I think there are good arguments for that, but you couldn't argue against their wide receiving core going into the season. This is before we knew what was going to happen injury-wise and who was going to be available at what times and all of that. Just on paper, we were having those discussions of, man, do they have 3 number ones, 2 number ones, and a hell of a number 2? A number 1 and 2 hell of a number 2s. Like, they had 3 guys and it didn't look like there was a third, between Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell going into the 2024 season. And then now, obviously, Stephon Diggs is elsewhere. Tank Dell is injured. And you're looking at Nico Collins, and we talked the last time, I think, about John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson and liking them as players. But obviously, you need more. We understand that. Like, it's a relevant point because if you have a healthy Tank Dell, you're not talking about that position group in the way that we're talking about it. You're just simply not. Like, we're looking around, maybe we're still talking about wide receiver, just because of the value of it and what you like the cost analysis of it and what you can get in the first round. You can still get you can get a really good receiver at 25 in most cases, or in a lot of cases, I would say.
Yeah.
But man, you're not feeling the way that you do about the group if he's healthy. And it's just a shame that that's not the case for him. So definitely rooting for him. I do want to ask you about talking with D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, and Will Anderson. You were at NRG on Monday. Did anything they had to say? I wasn't able to attend, so I'm curious from you. You know, I do this, man. When I don't get to go, fortunately, I got access to the people that do go. Whether it's and you get to. I know you're at most things, but we get to do this where if we don't go, we know somebody that was there.
Yeah.
And we can find out what happened as if we were there. So I'm gonna do that with you right now on the podcast. Take me there. Was there anything that was said from D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson Jr. that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, the one thing that stood out to me when it came to D'Amico was him reiterating what he said at the NFL Combine, what Nick Caserio said on last week about taking the best player available and not so much drafting for need. And I want to make sure that I was clear and concise on what the mindset is as far as the answering of this question. And like I said, I know that things change on draft day. I know that they like to keep their hands hidden when it comes to the draft, but I'm just with this answer that you're giving me. I ask, does the best player available sometime coincide with the need? And so he just basically said that we're not drafting based off of a certain position. We're going to take the best player available. And then whatever the need is, we'll fill that, based off of what we had. I think that the mindset, and especially listen to D'Amico talk on Monday, was like they're pretty satisfied with what they have, but they know that they need more. But he feels like by him talking that he can get some more out of, and especially on that offensive side of the ball. So that stood out to me when he was talking about best player available versus need. He also talked about developing players, getting some of the younger guys that come into the league as far as having the swarm mentality. But talking to CJ, it was funny because CJ addressed the elephant in the room when he was asked about the offensive line, and he said, I know that you're probably talking about, LT, who is, LT and Shaq, two of my best friends on the team. And he said, I went to the front office and I told them how I felt about it, but at the same time, I never underestimate what Nick is. He said, and we have this blind trust. He said they talked about blind trust and building trust. And he said, I have this blind trust in Nick Caserio because he always has a plan. And I had the opportunity to be on Sports Sunday with Randy McElvoy and Aaron Wilson on KPRC2. And when we were talking about this, the one thing that I told them was something that CJ solidified with that answer. I said, you never know what Nick Caserio is going to do. Nobody, it's always 50-50. Nobody knows what Nick Caserio is going to do except Nick Caserio. And he does have a plan. I will say, this last 2 years, him and D'Amico, they have drafted very, very well. But I mean, 3 years ago, we knew that they were going to take a quarterback, whether it was going to be if Carolina takes CJ, then they're going to take Bryce. Nobody's seen Will Anderson Jr. coming. And so when you get to switching them up like that, I liked him saying that he said that Nick Caley, he likes the offense as far as the swag is concerned with with the LA and the New England and things like that. So that, and then Will was just Will, man. Will is just always a bundle of joy. Will talked about his offseason. So, I like what came out of the press conferences on Monday.
Let me ask you about Stroud, man, because that's the part. If there was anybody, and it's not just because he's the quarterback, but I think, specific to what's been going on with the Texans this offseason, you talked about the elephant in the room, and I think it's a couple of them. It's the offensive line and the offensive coordinator, and the fact that the offense itself is changing. When we got a chance to talk to Nick Caserio last week, that was the thing that I asked him about, was how
Very good question too.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. The how the change in the offense impacts. Well, first I asked them about just sort of the change in their draft strategy over the years, given the fact that it is year 5 now for him drafting, right? So I figure like you drafting in year 5's got to be a lot different than you drafting in year 1 or 2. So to me that's an answer that changes over the years, the things that you learn and how perhaps your draft process has changed. But beyond that, and specific to this point, I was curious about how potentially the offense changes could impact how they evaluate and look at offensive players going into this draft. It's to me, I thought a relevant question and just an interesting thought exercise of how do they go about building this offense. But specific to CJ, I'm curious of if you got any sense for how he's approaching this year, knowing that the offensive line has gone through all of the changes that we talked about. Year 2 was successful, but kind of disappointing, even with the success that they had. They're changing the offense. Nick Caley, you talked about him giving CJ the keys. What stood out to you about CJ, or at least like what sense did you get from him about how he's approaching what I think is kind of a pivotal year for him?
Yeah, I don't and I said this on the Locked On Texas podcast. So for me, I don't judge a quarterback until after year 3, because you come in the rookie year and they can blow you away, and nobody really knows what to expect from a rookie quarterback. That second year, you get some film on them, and they may go through a slump. We know that CJ didn't have his second year like he did his rookie year. So coming into this third year, I will say this: the one thing that stood out to me before we even got an opportunity to speak to CJ, the one thing that has been loud and clear is that CJ has been super focused. He's been off the grid. And I think that him being off the grid compared to after his rookie season, where it looked like he was just on a world tour. Every time you turn around, you see CJ Stroud. But you can tell that you can tell that he's a lot more focused. He's a lot more focused on the task at hand. He's been in the building a lot, based off of what D'Amico said and based off of what Will Anderson Jr. said. And he's been in the building and just trying to make sure that he's, leading by example. And so him staying off the grid for me was by far one of the best signs that he is going to be focused. And another thing is, so B, I'm gonna tell you like this. I like where the Houston Texans are going. I mean, okay, so they had to make a change at the offensive coordinator position. I think they had gotten all that they were going to get out of Bobby. And side note, I also said this on the Locked On Texans podcast, is that we can criticize Bobby a lot, but could Bobby had possibly still been here if you have a healthy Nico for the whole year, if you have a healthy Stephon Diggs for the whole year, if Tank Dell doesn't go down and they could advance, they may have advanced further in the playoffs. You get Joe Mixon healthy for the entire year. You could have still seen Bobby here. So I don't want to criticize him as much as before people start coming at me and shooting at me. I just want people to take a step back and think about that. So now you fire Bobby, you get rid of Bobby, you bring in Nick Caley, and this is CJ is playing in his second offensive system in his third NFL year. Like that right there is that says a lot as well. You're putting a lot on CJ Stroud to say, okay, so now we need you to emulate what you did in year 1, but we also need you to do it in a new system. And you came into the NFL, your first 2 years was under a first-time offensive play caller. In year 3, you're under a first-time play caller. I don't know. Nick Caley could come in and be Sean McVay, or Nick Caley can come in and be Bobby Slowick 2.0. We don't know what he's going to be. And I hate that people are putting him up on a pedestal. I have nothing against Nick Caley. I've only met him once. I'm not knocking him. The only thing that I'm saying is, if we're looking at tangible things, He's done nothing as an offensive coordinator. And I get that he came from the New England system. Okay, that's cool. I get that he came from the Los Angeles Rams system. That's cool. He has never called one play in the NFL. So before we start crowning him and his system and what he's going to do, hey, let's just take a step back and see what he's going to do and then how that's going to affect a year 3 CJ Stroud. But the one thing that I do like what CJ said is, once again, I think that Nick Caley got smart and said, well, what Bobby lacked it was he didn't give CJ the keys. Like Bobby let CJ get in the car, but he made CJ sit in the passenger seat. Now CJ finna drive. I'm gonna give CJ the keys and tell him, hey, anytime you ready to take this car out, let me know. No, anytime you're ready to go for this drive, whatever time you ready to go for this drive on Sunday, I'm gonna be sitting in the passenger seat.
But I think that's why so many have talked themselves into the Nick Caley excitement, whether it's fans or media. It's because, for better or worse, man, another way of looking at this is they have put CJ Stroud's future in this man's hands. Like, obviously, if it doesn't go well, they could fire him after a year, and that would be that would be its own story, of course. But it's not like it would necessarily be the end of the world. But then we would be talking about a third offensive coordinator going into year 4. Like, they have, and I don't think that's going to happen. So they are talked about being the Rockets earlier in the episode. The Rockets being pot committed to Fred VanVleet, for better or worse. No matter if you think that he's shooting you out of the game, they are now pot committed to Nick Caley. And I think a lot of people have probably talked themselves into the positivity or the bright side of it all, the newness of it all, because of CJ Stroud. Because I think people feel good about CJ Stroud, but also because, like, his future is dependent on it. And how dare you? How could you put the future of CJ Stroud in the wrong hands? Like, surely this guy must be credible. Now, you are correct. You are correct in your point, right, Sarge? Like, we don't really know. So it's a roll of the dice. It's a gamble of sorts. But I think a lot of people have yet to even want to entertain the idea of, what if this doesn't work out? What if this dude isn't good? What if this could be bad? What if you put the future of CJ Stroud in the wrong hands, and you already felt like you didn't did it with the first couple of years because you punted on that guy who was a first-time play caller when he got in? So, it is. I don't know if we can overstate the importance of this whole thing working out. And you talked about them giving the keys, or Nick Caley giving them the keys. It's like, it's a funny dynamic of, they have put CJ Stroud's future in a lot of ways in Nick Caley's hands. And I think the proper response from Nick Caley is, let's put it back in CJ Stroud's hands by letting him take more ownership of the offense and more accountability and that sort of thing. The pre-snap stuff and all of that, like sitting in the driver's seat, like you said.
He said the offense is going to look more like what he ran at Ohio State too.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. But I think it is such an interesting dynamic and different way of looking at this season as opposed to last season, where, like, I think the biggest difference, man, is how, and we did a little bit of this on the radio. I think if I'm being honest, here on the B Block podcast, I think sometimes to fill up time when we talk about honeymoon phases, is the honeymoon phase over with D'Amico or CJ Stroud, or at one point Nick Caserio, whatever it is? I think that's long gone at this point, and it's not for like a lack of patience or resentment or anything, because they've been successful, right? Mm-hmm. So now it's more so about setting expectations, which they have now done, setting a standard, which they have now done, for what the team is supposed to look like. And now it's about getting over the hump. And so it's just going to be fascinating for me, Sarge, and I think for all of us, to see how they tackle that, see how that whole thing, how they go about attacking that, and how that whole thing plays out.
Well, real quickly too, to piggyback off something you said, one thing that I stressed, about a month or two ago was one, D'Amico Ryans is a victim of his own success, and because of the way that he came in and started winning right off the bat, by winning AFC South back-to-back AFC South titles, winning a winning wild card playoff games, making it to the divisional round of the playoffs 2 years in a row. It sped up the process of the rebuild. It sped up the process of the rebuild. And if he was successful in one of those 2 years, then even in this year, I don't think what I'm about to say would be true. But because he has been so successful, the problem is the clock is ticking. And a lot of people don't believe that the clock is ticking on D'Amico Ryans, and I do. And the reason why I say that is because you can't keep making it to the division round of the playoffs and coming up short, because eventually they're gonna say, okay, so when are we gonna get over the hump? Especially when we got to give CJ almost $75 million a year, and we got to give Will Anderson Jr. 58 million a year. Like these salaries are like these extensions are going to come up, and you got to keep both of them because those are the cornerstones of your franchise. So the clock is ticking when it comes to the success of D'Amico Ryans. Now, I'm not saying that the Texans will come in and fire him, but they're going to be looking like, hey, so when are we going to get over this hump? And the reason why I say that and how that ties into Nick Caley is Bobby Slowick has already made all of the mistakes in the first 2 years that you can give as far as a pass is concerned for a first-time offensive play call. And so if you look back at it, every time that Nick Caley makes a mistake, everybody's going to always associate that to, well, we've seen that same thing when Bobby was here, and that's what Bobby did. And so Nick Caley doesn't have a lot of room for error, which also brings in Nick Caserio, because if after 2 years you brought in a new offensive coordinator for CJ Stroud, and then the next 2 years, then you're gonna have to also, like I said, you also got to pay him. But if Nick Caley is successful, you're telling me you want to go into year 5 with CJ Stroud on his third offensive coordinator under D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio? Like, somebody's gonna have to go. I don't know which one of them it would be if that happened, but that window, people think that window is big, and that window is not as big as people believe, because once they start having to pay these, Nico's going to come back for a contract extension here pretty soon. And
Yep.
you're looking at these windows, and that's all I'm saying, B, is that window isn't of winning, and winning right now isn't as big as a lot of fans want to believe.
Brian Bearfield is his government name, but y'all know him as Big Sarge. Man, tell them about Big Sarge Media and the Locked On Texans podcast and what the Black Mark Berman is up to these days.
Well, first, you can find me at Big Sarge Sports with a Z at the end on the app formerly known as Twitter. You can follow me on Sports Talk with Big Sarge on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe at Big Sarge Media, and the Locked On Texans podcast. You can find that wherever you get podcast from, and on YouTube. And let me say this, man. I appreciate you for having me on, man. I am so glad that, I don't know how religious this show is, but I'm so glad, B, that God put us on the same path in order to be able to meet each other and develop this friendship, to whereas we can just come on and chop it up, and not only chop it up on here. B, I'm gonna go ahead and put our personal business out real quickly. Hey, man, look, I try to make sure that I call and talk with you at least once a week, just to get away from all this other stuff. But you and I, we share something in common. And I'm pretty sure you've talked about it, but you and I share something in common, that we also always got to make sure that every day is a different day for us, but we also got to be able to make it through that day. So once again, man, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you. I really appreciate that, brother.
Nah, man, I'm glad you said that. And this is a personal podcast, which, for me, I don't mind saying that, this is a God thing. Like this goes far beyond, like, me and you, we could fall off the face of this media game and you a friend forever. So, like, it's real easy to kind of come on here on a podcast and chop it up, because we're gonna chop it up anyway.
Yeah.
So since we in this business and doing what we're doing, we might as well bring it to the people. But yeah, man, behind the scenes, man, definitely somebody that that I would say I rely on for, emotional support and strength. One of those people, like, this is the thing, when you lose somebody, and not to get too deep, but when you lose somebody, everybody is kind of around to say that they're gonna be there for you.
Yeah.
They're gonna check on you and they're gonna be around. And this is
Yes.
not a knock on people, but eventually life kind of just start to take over and everybody go back to doing their own thing, and just whatever the circumstances just kind of get normalized, and whatever you're going through kind of get lost in the shuffle sometimes. Real easy to happen. And I think because we got that shared experience is the reason why uh you're able to kind of see through that and, you know, be a friend above just being a colleague. So this ain't no media thing. We just happen to be on here now, and that's how we met. That's how that was the vessel or the avenue in which God brought us, but the lane in which God brought us, but it's far beyond that, man. So I appreciate you, especially being generous with your time, brother. Thank you, brother.
Always, man. Always. Anytime you need me, I'm gonna be here.
No doubt. That is Big Sarge from Big Sarge Media and the Locked On Texans podcast. Make sure that you are subscribed to Big Sarge's, all of his media empires, if you would. The man is doing his thing. Make sure that you subscribe to the B Block podcast. I want to shout out Foolish Club Media and the partnership as well. Check them out on YouTube, on all of your podcast platforms. We are doing this now twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So make sure you check us out. And until next time, y'all be good.